And we will now welcome new participants, Mr. Mark Babington, who is Executive Director of Regulatory Standards at the Financial Reporting Council. He leads the division responsible for the FRC technical and public policy work, covering audit, corporate reporting, corporate governance and stewardship, actuarial, and the FRC lab. Mr. Babington has a 20-year career in audit and was director at the UK National Audit Office. So welcome, Mark. We also welcome Mr. Michael Zell, who has taken over the management of the German audit oversight body, APAS. APAS is responsible for audit supervision in Germany. And we also welcome Patrick de Cambeau, who is the chair of the Autorité des Normes Comptables, the French accounting standard setter, but prior to that has been the chair of Mazars France and then of the Mazars network. So welcome to you three, and the debate will be moderated by Eric Baudrier, who is the Director General for H3C.
Thank you, Patrick. And welcome to our three speakers. Perhaps just to launch the debate, I think that it could be very interesting to receive from Mark and Michael the state of play of the situation regarding joint audit in UK and in Germany. And also, I think that it could be very interesting to receive from Mark and Michael their own point of view regarding what have just been said by our firm's representatives regarding some advantages of joint audit. If I can just summarize some of these ideas, I've noted is to share a different type of culture, also to have a better work or a better documentation due to the pressure from the review of the other auditors. Also, joint audit could be seen as a rampart against creative accountancy from management. That's to say that they are stronger because they are true. It's also more expertise from auditors, which can give more information to the audit committee. Also, I noticed that it could increase continuity of the audit. And the extra cost could be limited, and it could be seen as a cost of the insurance given. So perhaps to start, Mark, I give you the floor to expose the state of play in the UK. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and it's very good to be able to join you today. In the UK, we do not really have many examples of joint audit, although our law does not preclude it. One of the main challenges from a UK perspective for joint audit is that it doesn't fit very well within our liability laws, and in particular the joint and several liability that would sit on auditors. I understand that you have slightly different provisions in France, which of course support the use of joint audit more widely. One of our real challenges that comes out of the report by the Competition and Markets Authority is a need to build capacity in the UK statutory audit services market. And by that I mean that although we have the largest audit firms which exist in many jurisdictions, there is a very steep cliff edge once you go beyond those largest firms. And therefore, one of the things that government here has been considering is what mechanism could be used to build capacity within that challenger auditor sector to allow those firms to grow so that they can take on a larger share of work. An example for you, we have 20 mid-tier firms who together form the Association of Practicing Accountants. And between them, those 20 audit firms deliver about £100 million worth of audit a year. You may have seen recently in the news that HSBC is looking to tender for its audit, and the audit fee for that one audit is £75 million a year. So being able to digest the largest jobs is always going to be something of a challenge, and that's why we need to build capacity through other ways. Our primary consideration, will always be how to do so in a way that preserves and protects audit quality. And therefore, as things stand, we believe that having one auditor responsible for signing the auditor's report and focusing on their statutory role helps in the best way to do that. I should just say, as part of the context, in 2016, when the Audit Regulation and Directive came into force, we were responsible for regulating about 75 audit firms that carried out public interest entity audit. That number has now dropped to around 35. And that is either because firms have merged or been taken over, or because they chose deliberately to get out of the public interest entity market. And therefore, the focus at the moment with the government's proposals about shared audit is a way intended to build up the number of firms that are capable of playing and delivering audit services in that market to one where we have greater diversity. And I know from discussing previously with colleagues in France, you have a much greater diversity in terms of the number of auditors than we do. And we need to look at particular steps that will increase the number that play within our market. But that's a very quick overview of the sorts of issues that we're dealing with in the UK. Obviously, once other speakers have given their contributions, I'm happy to deal with any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Michael, what is your point of view?
Yes, thank you very much that you have invited me. I can close my remarks by saying I completely support the analysis and the analysis and the respective confirmations by my British colleague. It's the same in Germany. We have the Big Four that have more or less about 80% of the public interest entities auditing. And then we have the next 10 where they do, well, more or less the auditing of pies that are pies not from the volume of their balance sheets, but because they are from one way or another fall under the definition of a pie. So it's an overall business of the Big Four and a very few others. And if you would draw a timeline, I can completely assure what my British colleague said. The numbers of pie auditors outside of the Big Four are very, very limited, and they are declining. So all in all, I'm pretty sure that there will be a much stronger appearance of the Big Four companies in the future on the pie market. It is highly specialized, and I only see, as long as it is not demanded by law, that joint audits will not be considered feasible. More or less, the Big Four tried to do once in a while a joint audit, usually based on either a specialty in some very limited market share that they have not built up scale by themselves, or just to make sure that they have done one. But the Big Four Big Four auditing firms are not very much interested in doing joint audits, and therefore without incentives on the one side, or making it in some way or another prerequisite by law, I do not see joint audits as a future in the German market. One has to say that from our government, we had well, not only from the government but from the parliament, we have enacted a law in recent months that says that there is, under special prerequisites, an unlimited liability for damages to third parties resulting from, well, gross negligence, respective premeditation. It is derived from the Wirecard scandal, you know about it. That says there can be an unlimited liability for damages, and that is therefore not really coverable by insurance, and therefore more and more of, well, general interested auditors to stay in the market of PI auditing vanished. So all in all, the future of joint audits is grim under the current legal situation. One has to say that frankly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, to be frank. I have noticed that for the UK and Germany, the main concern could be the market concentration. So it's a good transition to give the floor to Patrick de Cambourg, because the question is how to have other big competitor than the Big Four, and in France we have had a good example regarding that with Mazars. So Patrick, I give you the floor to perhaps to explain how the joint audit have had an effect on the growth of Mazars.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all. Yes, I'm very happy to testify in this webinar. During my long tenure with Mazars, I developed strong views about the benefits of joint audit in terms of technical quality, of corporate governance, and also of diversified audit services offering. This is a long story indeed, since we must all remember that at the beginning of the 90s, joint audit was considered by most as an odd system specific to a strange country, France, system that was to disappear shortly. If I may tell a little anecdote, a big firm colleague of mine told me then, so in the 90s, you have blue eyes. This is a recessive genetic feature. Joint audit is bound to disappear as blue eyes will, and quicker. Most fortunately, he is now proven wrong. Needless to say what my reaction and response was. Now, joint audit is a recognized and highly regarded system in France, of course, where the proof of concept has taken place, and also in the EU, where joint audit has gained full legal recognition, even if in the transposition of the audit regulation, the audit directive, it has not been mandated in many countries. I left Mazars more than 6 years ago to take a public position as chair of the French accounting standard setter and as a member of the board of AMF and ACPR, supervising the financial markets and banks and insurance. Today, I do not necessarily express the views of these institutions, but I can share with you that my public experience of the last 6 years has only reinforced my strong views, the strong view that I mentioned earlier. Briefly, my experience from the field as a partner in charge of large PIE audits confirms the benefits in terms of technical quality. Confronted with complex issues or difficult situations, the two pairs of eyes concept and the resulting professional dialogue have always been exceptionally efficient. This experience confirms also the benefits in terms of governance. Diversity of cultures, approaches, legal backgrounds stimulates productive dialogue with management, audit committees, board, shareholders. This has already been explained by previous panelists. I would like to add that the operational aspects of joint audit, such as allocation of basic tasks to avoid duplication, rotation of audit fees, progressive shares in the audit, joint conclusions are manageable, and that the additional time and cost needed are minimal as compared to other systems and above all to benefits. I would like to mention also that insurance cover is, in my view, not a real problem, because in case of a major problem, anyway, insurance covers provided even by large firms, in my view, would be insufficient. So, anyway, all firms are confronted with an insurance cover issue. I would like now to focus on the benefits in terms of diversifications of audit services offering. I share the concern that the market is over-concentrated with the lack of options and the risks related to the too big to fail situation. The Barnier attempt in 2011 to diversify the market, including via joint audit, met fierce opposition and did not succeed. I and many share the view that in the public interest, a best 10 offer of services would be far superior. What is the relation between joint audit and diversification? I'm happy to testify. Retrospectively first, Mazars was small, had strong views on technical qualities and governance, had also robust values such as no goodwill in partner transactions, and the willingness to translate these into an original culture of service based upon a combination of rigor and dialogue. Mazars needed the opportunity. Joint audit provided and provides this opportunity, which led the small partnership to grow to an international partnership of over 30,000 professionals today. Joint audit combined with our strategic direction of travel created a virtuous circle. Mazars has built capacity over time and contributed to an increasing number of CAC 40 audits, from a couple to between 12 and 15, depending on the composition of the index. Mazars' share in the audit also moved up from a minimum of 20-25% to be able to form a view to between 40 and 60%. Mazars also diversified its sector expertise, including banking and insurance. I sincerely believe, that other firms can follow a similar path with a proper regulatory incentive. I would like to add a word about a perspective regarding the market in the EU. I happen to be at the moment heavily involved in the sustainability reporting development in the EU in particular in terms of standard setting. With EFRAG, since I chair the task force on the elaboration of EU sustainability reporting standards. I have, of course, analyzed the situation of the CS, deriving from the CSRD, and we all know that CSRD is creating a new environment for sustainability reporting in the EU, where not only 50,000 entities are going to be required to provide a sustainability report, which at EFRAG we tend to call the sustainability statements, as a second leg to corporate reporting on an equal footing with financial statements. But it will also address environment, social, and governance topics and subtopics. So it is a comprehensive reporting that is going to happen in the years to come, with possibly a step-by-step approach, a progressive enhancement towards a fair view or a faithful representation, possibly towards the end of the decade. What is more important is that the assurance of the reporting is a key feature introduced by the CSRD. And as you may know, the Parliament has already mentioned that they would like to speed up a little bit the idea of moving to reasonable assurance from limited assurance. So in that context, I think that auditors will have a crucial role to play. And the crucial role to play that they have to play cannot be, in my view, an environment where the concentration would progress even more. I think it would be, a contradiction as compared to the objective of what I call the best 10 offer of services. I think this is a golden opportunity for a global understanding and a global commitment of the players to share sustainability reporting. Audits are going to represent a significant progression in terms of activities for auditors and maybe some other third parties. But I think the likelihood of having auditors taking a fair share of that role is high, because there is a significant interest in connecting the two, since connectivity is, of course, on the agenda, connectivity between financial and sustainability reporting. Therefore, I think this is an opportunity to strike a deal at EU level in order to diversify the offer of services and allow for new players to play a role both in financial reporting audits and in sustainability reporting audits. Anyway, on the sustainability side, everybody has to invest, including the larger firms. So having to invest, I think is a way forward, and it is in the public interest. If I take my current position, it is in the public interest to have a broader spectrum of players in this market, as demonstrated by some players, including Mazars. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for what you are saying. Mark, do you have a reaction?
Well, only that I do recognise many of the challenges that Patrick's just set out, particularly with the ever-growing expansion of greater demand for assurance services over more information and different types of information. And I still think that we have to overcome this difficulty about audit firms engaging in the public interest entity market, or it will mean that we continue to see greater consolidation of these services around a small number of very large-scale providers, which I agree is not necessarily in the public interest. One of the things that concerns me equally is that participants today will be aware that the government in the UK has been considering whether or not there should be an internal controls type regime, a sort of Sarbanes-Oxley type regime. And if you begin to add Sarbanes-Oxley, assurance of ESG and climate information, the audit itself, support in financial transactions, you begin to come up with a package of services that is a very significant multiplier of the audit fee itself. And I think that is why we've seen a number of stakeholders in the UK calling for stronger controls in the shape of perhaps mandatory caps on the share of a market that a particular provider can have. And I know that is something that government is considering carefully.
Thank you. Michael, any reaction?
Yes, what I hear about the Mazars approach is what we here noticed ourselves. It's an idea of a firm that says we are taking respective approaches, maybe to become the fifth. Not only the fifth, but becoming one of the big five. But this is based on the management idea to grow beyond their borders. And this is not what I see from the medium-sized auditing firms in Germany. They want to grow in the German market, but I do not see that they are interested in becoming European and on the next level maybe international champions, or maybe not champions, but serious contenders. And so unless there isn't a will to do just that, or to make joint audits necessary by law, I do not see that we open up the oligopoly of the Big Four. And on the other side, the Big Four corporations have always said, if there is an interesting new field that is feasible to conquer for us, they will do. And if we do not have other firms who are more specialized and can do it for a competitive price, I do not see the next fifth or the next sixth. This is well, not a passive. Well, this is not a pessimistic voice, but it's derived from the facts we see in the market. So, first of all, we have to have the will of the medium-sized auditing firms to become a serious contender to the Big Four. And on the second, they must have, well, an environment that lets them respectively grow. One of the issues is that according to European law, you can exclude certain Big Four auditing firms from making an offer if they are if they are bigger than a certain threshold. And it's in our new government's manifesto, there's a sign that says, we want to see whether German government-owned corporations might exclude 3 of the big 4 from making offer for auditing and allow medium-sized corporations to enter into the auditing world of the government-owned corporations. But whether it will work out, we do not see yet. The coalition contract, which is the new government's manifesto, has only a small, very small part in it regarding this issue, and we will see whether it will be introduced in one way or another. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Perhaps to come back on what Mark has said in the beginning. Mark, you have talked about shared audit that could be implemented in the UK, and it could be a solution to raise the problem of market concentration. So perhaps a question regarding that. To your point of view, why could be the shared audit could be better, could be a better solution than joint audit to fix the problem of market concentration?
So one of the concerns is in part driven by the small number of participants in the top end of the statutory audit services market. So if I focus particularly on, say, the FTSE 350, and the concern there is that when a company tenders for an auditor, it has extremely limited options because it will have an incumbent auditor. Quite often it will use another big firm to provide tax services. And quite often a third may have been used to deliver particular programs. And so therefore they have extremely limited choice. If we were in a situation with joint audit, that would take a further participant out of the market when it came to re-tendering again. And one of the things that we have been looking at ways to sort of address is to say, how do we get to a stage where we have more participants in the market who can demonstrate their credibility to pick up additional audit work? One of the ways to do so is to give them certainty over the ability to be able to the ability to be able to win work and keep work, to allow them to invest in business capacity. And I have to say that one of the things that we were particularly interested in was the French example, where you have tenure, I believe, for auditors when they're appointed. So they almost have a very strong support to stay in post for a number of years after their initial appointment. So we looked at ways to support that growth, and we looked at ways that would also support audit quality by linking that growth to an engagement that would lead to a separate signed auditor's report. One of the things that I think I'm very aware of is that these measures are not going to solve a problem overnight. One of the things that we want to be able to do is expand the capacity in the marketplace, but it is going to take time to build that. And when you look at the Competition and Markets Authority's recommendations, which were principally in respect of the FTSE 350, even at the low end of the FTSE 350, there are still significant audit fees, which means that you have to mobilise a significant amount of resource to do the work. But what the CMA was particularly concerned about is it didn't want a two-tier market where challenger firms were seen to be operating in either the smallest, the lowest fee, or perhaps the most reputationally difficult audits, it actually wanted there to be genuine participation throughout. Like, I have to say, it's not an easy problem to fix, but it is one that we have to turn our attention to, and hence the proposals that government has consulted on. Thank you.
Thank you. And Michael, in Germany, is shared audit could be also something that you have analyzed?
Pardon? Could you repeat it? I didn't hear you quite well.
Yes. My question is to know if in Germany you have analyzed shared audit as something could be implemented.
Well, you can implement it. I mean, it's not precluded, it's not forbidden, but for this form, there is no actual demand. The auditing committees usually do not ask for it for their lead or ask for it to their leading auditor. So there is no demand by the board of directors or the oversight committees. The auditing firms do not seem to be very interested in, from their business point of view, except the few exceptions I mentioned, very specialized, or if they have to cover a marketplace, they have no experience in it. And the third is that the medium-sized German auditing firms are not so much interested in being a contender. So that makes it quite difficult. I mean, if you want to start in the Olympics or in World Cup finals, you have to have, first of all, you have to have the will to start there and be a serious contender, and we do not see that. And those who are governing the market are not very interested to have new contenders they challenge on their home turf. So I do not see any serious link to foster joint audits, unless you find it necessary to put it into a law and make it a legal obligation. But this hasn't happened yet, and as far as I see the manifesto of the new government, there is no chapter that says joint audits may be the solution of it. So that makes me a bit open frank in my observations. But I see the problem, no questions. But what I do not see is that from a political point of view, from an economic point of view, and from the business intended view of those who could become potential contenders, are interested in just making that. And from a final viewpoint is, if you have a multinational audit, you have to make sure that you have the respective control system and quality control system. And the quality control system, in one way or the other, we have seen the exception in Wirecard, but is a universal quality control system. Especially if it comes to auditing. And this investment and this execution of these quality control systems leads to the notion that the minor, smaller firms have to adopt that to become, well, joint auditors. At the end of the day, as my British colleague said, the auditor in charge has to sign it. And the last one who has to sign it has to make sure that the minor joint audits are that good that he writes and signs it for himself and for his firm. And they are not ready to do that. So all in all, without further legal necessities, I do not see that that this concept will thrive.
Okay, thank you. Our time is
and I see my last word, and I see that the colleagues from France have a different approach from the Mazars business concept and from the respective government that demands it. So that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for all you are saying. Perhaps just giving the floor to the audience for question. If someone have a last thing to say. Nothing more. So I turn myself to the audience to see if you have any question. Oh, we have a question here and on the first.
Merci. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Jean-Charles Boucher from RSM. I'm partner at RSM. I have just one question regarding Germany. During the discussions raised while finalizing the audit reform in Europe, Germany was ready to implement joint audit for banks and insurance companies, considering that those entities were risky. What are your views on that approach, and could you please give us the reasons why the government finally did not implement joint audit on these entities?
Well, in my opinion, they didn't consider it feasible for the German market. That's it. So we had the legal opportunity, and the government said it's not necessary to advance the apostrophe fight against the concentration on auditing services. So it was not considered as a measure to fulfill the aim. That's it.
We have another question just here. Take the mic.
Michel de Fabiani from ECODA, the European Confederation of Directors. I think whether you have single, shared or joint audits, the question remains, we have an oligopoly. It's not a monopoly, it's an oligopoly, and oligopolies in Europe have to follow rules, are subject to checks, and the institutions who are in charge have to do their job.
Yes, I have nothing to add. But it's not a question, it's an affirmation. So, no more questions. So, thank you all for your attention. So, thank you to our speakers for their participation. Now we will have a break, a short break of 1 hour.